Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in work and in life and simplify them. And friends, I want to go bold, like really big bold. We're looking at the new year ahead. We're thinking about our strategic plans and maybe doing a bit of a career shift. Who knows? But really sort of resetting and refreshing in the new year. And my special guest today is going to say, I'm sure, put a big case towards boldness might be the key to getting exactly what you want, or at least to get one step closer to what it is you want in work and in life. And her name is Caytie Langford. She's a certified executive coach, a TEDx speaker, and an expert helping women get clarity and confidence. You know, she found over time, the more she started coaching, the more she realized there are many women who need and want to connect with other rebellious, rule-breaking women who have their own plans for their life. I mean, imagine, right? That's when Bold Women Society was born, a membership community to support like-minded women to help them build confidence, take action, and set their sights on bold new goals. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Caytie Langford. Hey, Caytie.
Hey, Mary. So excited to be here today.
Oh, I am so thrilled you're here too. I love talking to another Texas girl on the podcast for sure. And, you know, I think you're onto something here with the Bold Women's Society. And I really want to learn more about this group that you've built a little bit later in the episode. But first things first, how do you define bold, especially these days?
Yeah, I think that the key to being bold is being the authentic version of yourself, no matter what the situation, and finding and using your voice as often as possible. That's what I see where a lot of women, we might be authentic, but we're not stepping into it with our voice, with our actions. And that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about being bold. Ignoring the naysayers and just continuing to go down your path.
And especially, I think the timing is impeccable because if you think about the last, 18 months of all of our lives, things have changed a bit, right?
Absolutely, they have. Absolutely, they have. And the research has shown us that the pandemic has more than anything impacted the lives of women, working women, women who are moms, women who are business owners. When we look at the Great Resignation, we're talking about women. And so this idea of being bold is 1000% timely for where we are here at the end of 2021.
Yeah. And when you mentioned the Great Resignation, I mean, there's been so many news reports about it. You look at the numbers, especially here in the States, of people that are like, no, I think I'm going to jump off the corporate 9-to-5, or I think I'm just going to stop working because it just doesn't make sense anymore.
Absolutely. Well, and I think about your own audience, right? The people who are listening to this podcast. So many of them probably had a shift, like many entrepreneurs do. They start out in one place and then they make a shift into their own business, especially when we talk about the creatives that are listening. Oftentimes people find themselves in a place where they're not it's not what they want it to be anymore. Yeah. And it really is taking a bold move to move beyond that.
So what do you feel is the underlying problem that really keeps women stuck or, keeps them from feeling bold? And what do you think is the antidote?
Yeah. So I think that there are so many things that come at women every single day, right? We have media, we have advertising. We're told to look a certain way, dress a certain way, walk a certain way. Hell, we're told smile. It makes you friendlier, right? So we're inundated, and we've been inundated since we were little girls about what we were supposed to be. And I think that with that comes a lot of limiting beliefs about ourselves. Do we believe that we can be bold? Do we believe that we can use our voice? And then let's just take how society is structured. The reality is, and I'm sorry to all of the men who are out there, we live in a patriarchal world.
Yes.
Our world is built for men to succeed.
Yeah.
And so when you partner all the messages we've been getting for 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years, plus just the fact that, think about the pandemic, Mary. I think about how many women you and I both know
Yep.
that all of a sudden were moms, dishwashers, cooks, cleaners, they, running their business and and homeschool teachers.
Yeah.
And yet when I think about my guy friends and my friends' husbands, we don't have kids, so I don't know exactly what that's like, but they didn't absorb the burden, right? So when we take all of that, I think it's just sometimes we're exhausted, we're burnt out, we're stressed, and stepping up and saying, yes, I'm going to be bold kind of can seem daunting. And that's a big part of it. It's like, oh my gosh, there's one more thing for me to try to be.
Yeah, I'm just weary. I'm just trying to get through today, this week, this month, this whatever. And with that kind of mindset, that in my mind is kind of survival mode. It's not sustainable for long term. And that's where real true burnout comes. So, when we look back on the last 18 months, I mean, yeah, I felt it too. I'm a mother of 2 kids. I own a business. I have a podcast. I have all the things, and I'm burnt out. And I think that's keeps me sometimes from being bold, amps up the weariness and all of that. But talk to me about fear and anxiety and things like that. Is that also sitting underneath and keeping us from doing our thing?
Absolutely. One of the things that I have learned through my coaching practice is I've had probably 200 conversations, and one year I tracked 100 of these conversations to hear what it was that was stopping women specifically from going after exactly what they wanted.
Yeah.
And every single time they labeled it as a lack of confidence or some version of the word confidence, confident, and fear. And so I think when we tie all of those things together, it is absolutely... It's tied together. You can't separate the two, right? When you have fear, your confidence tends to be lower.
Yeah.
When you're anxious, your confidence tends to be lower. When we say go be bold, that can sometimes raise people's fear. It can raise people's anxiety. What do you mean I need to use my voice in a different way? What do you mean, right? And especially when we talk about work and in the workplace and women's careers, whether we're business owners or not, so many of us have been taught, put your nose to the grindstone, do the work, and you will be rewarded.
Right.
And that's not true. It's just not true. When we think about who gets promoted, it's the squeaky wheels who are getting. And so when we talk about even boldness, for entrepreneurs, you need to tell your customers how great you are. You need to tell your clients how well you can help them, and whether you're solving a problem or adding in something great into their life. Like if you're a florist, you might think, I don't really solve a problem, but you're adding joy to someone's life. And it can't just be, I'm going to go and make beautiful flower arrangements.
Right.
We have to dig into that boldness. And so when we get back to fear and anxiety, all of those things tend to cloud. Can I be the bold version of myself?
Yeah. Well, and then you let in all those other voices that go, oh, I don't know. It's, and because I think I can only speak for myself, but I think when you get thrown a curveball like a pandemic, which you've never actually lived through ever in your entire life, and it's such a huge curveball of uncertainty, you kind of go into stabilize mode. Just stabilize the ship, because this is something we've never seen before. So we've just got to figure it out. And that causes you to not put yourself out there as much, or not try and launch a new product or service, because you're like, well, I'm just trying to keeping the ship stable for now. But, things are opening up back in, depending on what part of the world you're tuning into us right now. But, world is opening again, and people are getting vaccinated, and all the things are happening. It's like taking the stabilize mode off and going, okay, are we ready to put the acceleration back on? And not acceleration as in let's just be super busy and stressed out, but putting the foot back on the pedal to say, yes, I'm in control. I am confident. I am going to do the thing, right?
Preach, Mary. Like that is exactly it. That is exactly it. We have been in this stabilization mode, which is great. We had to go through that. We also had to learn what worked and what didn't work.
Yeah.
And now what I'm hearing from women more than anything is this is no longer working.
Yeah.
My life before, I didn't realize it wasn't working, but it's not working.
Right.
And what I want now and what I've been through the last 18 months, it is not working. And so now I need to go forward. And that's really when we're talking about, setting yourself up in 2022 to be bold. Because one of the things that I think people need to realize when we talk about burnout and stress, no one's coming to save you, sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No one. There is no white horse and a knight coming to save you and make it all better. It just isn't happening. Yeah. And so the way that we get past burnout, the way that we get past this is we have to say, I'm putting myself first.
Yeah.
I am allowing myself to go forward and believe that I am important. And it's not that the kid's not important, and it's not that the clients, and not that the spouse, and not that, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. I mean, how many times have we heard that? And yet when we look at really what's been happening to women, their cups are dry. Yeah. I mean, some of them are just bone dry. Yeah. And I'm sure that some of your audience right now, they're like, that's me. I'm at the point where, oh, gosh.
Right. Well, you just sort of pour a triple espresso in there thinking that will carry me through today so I can plow through my 80 bazillion things on my to-do list. But again, it's not sustainable. And I think what I hear you say in this, and I really want to dive into like the how, because I think this is really, really, really important. We all understand it on a surface level. But I really want to make sure that you guys are listening can have simple, practical tips to like figure out how to do this. But I think it's part and parcel of figuring out a way to squash the uncertainty in life. And, as you say, like become unapologetic, unstoppable, and unleashed in your boldness. So how do we cultivate more confidence? Like, how do we do that in our work and in our lives?
Yeah. So the easiest thing that I think that we can do when it comes to confidence is we all need to have what I call a confidence resume. So a lot of times when it comes to our confidence, we have done many, many things over our lifetime, but we move on to the next thing. And so our confidence all of a sudden gets thrown into the corner and it's now piled on with dust. And it's just that thing that we don't think about. And so what a confidence resume is, it is a written social proof of all of the hard things you've done when you didn't want to do it, of all of the scary things that you did that you accomplished, when you were excited and nervous and anxious and you did something. And I'm not just talking, Mary, about like the diplomas on the wall or the, 40 under 40 awards or those kinds of things. Put that on there for sure. But I'm talking about the times when something was scary for you and you pushed through. And let me give the audience a quick example of what I mean. In 2009, I was 29 years old. Actually, this is 2010, right before I turned 30. Whistler was having the Olympics, and my family, we went to Vancouver, we went to Whistler. And I went snow skiing for the very first time at the age of 29. It was terrifying. I hated it. Yes. I do not understand ski boots. I was like a pizza wedging down the whole way. And yet, when I look at the pictures of me in ski school, when I look at my confidence resume and I see that, and I remember how scared I was, how nervous I was, how anxious I was, I remember if I can do that, I can do anything. So it doesn't matter if your sister, your neighbor, your friend, your business partner has the same thing on her confidence resume. It just matters that you put down your social proof of where you built your resume. And then the key is that you've got to you've got to put that somewhere you can see it. So I have clients that put it in their, in their bathroom, in their closet, in their office, so that the next time you come up against something, because we will, you look at it and you remember, oh, but look at all these other things that I didn't feel confident and I did them. And that is when you've been you've been flexing your confidence muscle your entire life. And I call it a resume because it's something you continuously add to. It's not just something you do once and then. So that is, I think, the easiest thing. I've done this exercise with young women as young as 15. So anyone can do this. Literally take out a piece of paper, 20 minutes, set a timer, and go through and ask yourselves, what are those things? And that's how you start your confidence resume.
I love it. And you're absolutely right. We are darting from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. So we win the award and we go, what's next? We hit the revenue target. We go, what's next? We ski down the mountain and not break a leg. What's next, right? I mean, it's funny. As soon as you mentioned that, it made me remember the fact that I have moved my entire family from England back overseas to Texas in a pandemic. And I remember right after we got all the boxes here at the house, I thought, man, I did that. And I literally can do anything in the world.
Absolutely.
What a feat.
Absolutely. And yet those are the small things that you're like, oh, that wasn't a big deal.
Right.
Like it was a big deal in terms of time and commitment and organizing. But it was a big deal for all intents and purposes.
Totally. And I like the fact that, we think about things outside of the workplace as well, because this is all character building skills and memories and hardships and challenges that we have figured out and overcome. And hey, guess what? We didn't die. So it must mean something good. And it reminds me of another conversation I had recently with Dr. Scott Robinson, specifically about how the brain works. He's the brain guy in Sydney, and it's your brain looking to build neural pathways that say, hey, what are the data points that prove that I am a resilient and bold person? And we forget because fear wants to keep us safe. So it just says, ooh, don't do that. Just pause or don't, whereas you have to remind your brain. And I love the idea of seeing it written, somewhere where you will see it many, many times a day. To remind yourself of like, oh yeah, actually, that is me. That is my identity. And that is who I am and how I'm showing up in the world, right?
Absolutely. Well, my co-founder for Bold Women's Society, she likes to say what gets measured improves. And, we've been doing some new big things and anytime, and I know every single business owner is going to understand what I say, right? Anytime you're about to launch a new product, a new service, you're putting yourself out there in a new way, a different project, etc. There's nerves, and you set a goal, and sometimes you hit it, and sometimes you don't.
Right.
And I was really in my own head a couple of weeks ago. I mean, crying like, oh, I'm a failure. This is, and she suggested to me, what have you been tracking? How are you looking at the impact that you're making?
Right.
And Mary, just taking a look at some of these things, the number of women that I've helped, I actually aggregated all of my coaching clients and the dollars that I've earned, right? Over multiple years, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Because I look at it as, what do we do this month, this quarter, maybe this year, on to the next tax return. And yet, and maybe even it's not about money or clients, but what's that thing that you can track that just reiterates to you that what you've been doing over time, like you're a badass.
Yeah.
Let's stop forgetting this.
Totally. And, anything where I've quote unquote failed, I've certainly learned. I've gotten the Girl Scout badge of honor on my sash that goes, okay, I'm not going to do it that way again because I've learned this, and this. And, I think that again, it's just a reminder because I think confidence at least for me, I consider myself a fairly confident, outgoing person. But even still, you may be the most extroverted person in the world and still be very insecure and a little bit, meek or just scared to take the next leap. And I think that that's what's hard. Going back to what you said earlier, it's just like our culture is sort of at this crossroads of, wanting to keep us meek and mild and, modest, and a woman should be, not heard, all the things, blah, blah, blah. And then equally, I feel like there's a big shift, whether spoken or unspoken, where women are just going, no, enough of that. That's not working.
Yeah.
Let's try something different. And that's what I want to ask you about, is that you talk a lot about like acts of rebellion. What does that mean, and how can we do it simply?
Yeah. So when I talk about acts of rebellion, what I really mean is that so many of us were raised to believe that we could have it all and be it all, right? If we're in a certain age group, us Gen Xers and millennials. And yet at the same time, when we get into life, when we got into the workplace, it was like, yeah, you kind of can have that, but kind of not really. Like you have to do it under these rules. And I mean, Mary, I'm just at the place where I'm like, screw the rules. I do not care.
Yeah.
And I'll give you my own example. I was sent to some of the best private schools in Dallas. I, went to a great university, got a degree, graduated on Friday, started working on Monday, had an amazing career, promoted multiple times, got to the C-suite, cried in my office every day because I realized that I was miserable and unhappy. And I was so afraid to take the next step because someone might think I was a rebel.
Yeah.
Someone might say, but that's not what you're supposed to do. And Mary, I will never forget this, actually. I wound up resigning from the job for multiple reasons, one of which was also it was affecting my health. My blood pressure was insane, and I had to walk away. So talk about scary. Quit your 6-figure job with no plan of what to do. That's scary.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my mentors, who happened to be a board member for the organization I was working for. She and I were on a phone call, and I was very nervous to tell her, even though she already knew that I was leaving. And she said to me, Caytie, this is the biggest mistake you're making in your career. You're going to regret this. And I don't know if that gave me fire, or if I was so pissed or let down or angry and all of the above.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what? I'm done living under someone else's rules. I'm done having someone who's a generation above me tell me how I have to live my life.
Yeah.
Not going to do it anymore. And I think when we look at women, and I know you have men who listen to this as well, but so many of us as women, we're told you have to be a business owner like this. You have to be a mother like this. Like, no, being bold and being rebellious is about listening to your own gut, your own intuition, right? This gift that we literally were created with to say, I'm not going to do it that way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, society, but I'm going to do it in a different way. And being okay to stand on that, even if you're by yourself. And I will tell you, you don't have to be by yourself for very long, because there are communities out there, your community, my community, that are saying, no, sister, come on over with us. You don't have to do this by yourself anymore.
Yeah. And, I think that it's so tricky, I find, because in this day and age, and I really feel like as well in the coaching realm, business coaching, life coaching, what have you, people, it's human nature to want to find the quick fix, the 5 steps that will make everything better, put a nice, pretty red bow on it and move on to my next thing that I'm trying to tackle. And I think that there is also a shift there as well. For a long while there, at least for the last 3 or 5 years, it was put a mentor or coach on a pedestal. Let's replicate her life because she's got it figured out. So let's download her template and, make it go. And I think people are waking up to that idea as well, because when you just put a person on a pedestal and say, she's the right way, I want to be a clone of her or him, they fall short because they're not gods. They are human. And so they also have imperfections and all the things, as they should. And I think that people are starting to kind of wake up to the ideas to what you said of like, oh, actually, what if the answer's inside me now of like what I need for my business, my lifestyle, my whatever, and then find the support and knowledge from a community-based system. And it's like, that feels a heck of a lot better than striving for, I just want to be just like her. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No one can be like someone else because they're unique.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. So I'm a big fan of strengths finders. I've dug into my strengths finders. I've coached strengths finders. And one of the things that is in my top 10 is individualization. Like I truly believe because there is only one you, that the one and only you is meant for greatness, because the one and only you can only do what the one and only you can do.
Yeah.
And so when you say, I want to be someone else, it saddens me because you're not meant to be someone else. You're not built to be someone else. You're not given the gifts that someone else has. And so, I will tell you the other thing, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Mary, but there have been times when I've lost coaching clients, not because they're, not doing great, but they've gotten what they need. And then they're ready. And I remember at first I was like, but what do you mean they don't need me anymore? What do you mean?
Yeah.
And that is ego talking.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
That's ego talking. So I truly do believe that the answers come from within. I think that you can use all the tools that you want to get to know who you are. And I do think that things like strengths finders are really good because it helps put words to something that may be so close to you that you don't know how to articulate. But then it's the getting quiet. And our great grandmothers, they got to be quiet. Why? Because they didn't have half the stuff we have, right? There wasn't, and we fail to be quiet because even when we have a minute in our car at a stoplight, we reach for our phone.
Yeah.
There's no way for us to be quiet. And I think that's why we have a lot of people who are saying, well, I don't know what I want in life. I don't know what it means, what's important to me. Or I kind of know, but I don't really know. If you are saying you don't know, that means you need to get quiet.
And again, points back to what we were talking about earlier. You're shifting gears away from survival mode, away from stabilization, into ideation, just going, well, what is it that I desire? What is it that schedule or lifestyle that I really want in this next week, month, quarter, and start listening. And I think that I don't know, I think it's scary. Like the idea that if you stop the frenzy, which you've gotten so used to running for so long, that's amplified by caffeine and candy stashed away in your car. Like it's scary to stop and actually listen, because if you stopped and listened, then you might actually have to do something about it too. You have to take action.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And action is scary.
Yeah, because you could fail, or somebody could reject that idea or think it's stupid or whatever. And so playing small is all about, well, just keep it like this. This little thing here is just fine for now, and it'll be great. We'll figure it out next month. And I only say this because I know it so well. I've done it many times in the last 18 years of running a business, 100%, and have had seasons of that, certainly in the last 18 months too. So going back to the idea of acts of rebellion, I mean, we're not talking about robbing liquor stores.
No.
Right? Like, so give me an example of an act of rebellion that a woman could take if they are a business owner.
Yeah. So I think that as a business owner, an act of rebellion could be saying, could be really defining your niche in a new and different way.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. When I started, I knew I only wanted to coach women.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, oh, that's so stupid.
Mm.
You're going to knock out 50% of the population. Like, so
Yeah.
I didn't think that was a problem. Everyone else thought that was a problem.
Yeah.
So even niching down, deciding like you could be a florist and say, I don't want to do weddings.
Yeah.
I'm not into that. All I want to do is corporate gigs, or all I want to do is delivery, right?
Yeah.
Like there is something inside of you that is saying, this is what I actually care about. And that's what it is. It could be saying, like I love this one. People are like, I want to run a 7-figure business. Why?
Mm-hmm.
What's important about a 7-figure business other than to say you're a 7-figure business? Does that, like, what's wrong with saying, you know what? I'm really good at $750,000 because in that, with my margins, I make about $250,000 and I only have to have 3 employees versus 10 employees.
Yes.
And I get to take 2 weeks off at Christmas and 2 weeks off in the summer. And right, like, stop thinking about what everyone else wants for your business.
Yeah.
And start thinking about what you want. I use the word badass. You know why? Because it makes me smile. Because I think of my clients as badasses. Because I think of all women as that, right? I know other women who are coaches who are like, oh, you shouldn't use that word. Well, you know what? That's your business that you can run. Mm-hmm. So I think when we take a look at our business, we have to say, why do we even get into it in the first place?
Yep.
What's really important about it?
Yeah.
What do we want out of it? And if you want a 7 or 8-figure business, know the reason why you want to. If you want to serve every single potential client under the sun, know the reason why you want to.
And, you know, I know that you guys know this, that are listening to us. You've probably figured it out, especially in the last couple of years. Anyone out there that is toting that they have a 7 or an 8-figure business, make sure you get the facts on that. Is that gross revenue, as in money coming in the door? Is that net income after they've paid their staff and contractors? Is that actually their salary? Highly unlikely, right? So you may have a 7-figure business, but running at break even and paying yourself $30,000 a year. So, you know, just don't be wooed by the numbers and the mysticism of this perfect, fantastic life, because 9 times out of 10, it's not real. Is all I'm saying.
That's right.
And then I think that, you know, again, that's that grand awakening that a lot of us are kind of going through of like, ugh, no, this is not what I want. This is not what I'm going to strive and chase after. Because I think one of the unspoken rules, especially if you were a kid that was born in the 70s and 80s in the States, is that you just got to go and work hard and overachieve and strive and to get where you want, right? And that's the old way of doing things, right? So what's a better alternative to actually finding our calling and then, more importantly, taking action?
Yeah. So I think that it all starts with clarity. It all starts with asking yourself or getting someone to ask you really hard questions.
And what would those be?
Yeah. So I think about in 3 questions that I think are kind of the beginning questions is, who do I want to be? Mm-hmm. What do I want to have? Mm-hmm. And what do I want to do? And even when we talk about who do I want to be, what do I want to have, what do I want to do, I'm not just talking about like, who do I want to be? I want to be a vice president. I want to be a business owner. I mean, do you want to be a mom? Do you want to be confident? Do you want to be bold and badass? Do you want to be a speaker? Like literally list out as many of those things that you want to be. Yeah. And then what do you want to have? Do you want to have great relationships? Do you want to have a healthy mindset? Do you want to have a house in the Bahamas, right? Like literally listing out everything you want to have. And then what do you want to do? And that's where I think you can put your work, right? What do I want to do? Well, I want to inspire, motivate, and impact the lives of women. That's important to me. That's what I believe I was put on the planet. But what else do I want to do? I want to go on a trip to Italy. Why? Because I haven't, and it's my dream. So it's that place that when you just start to answer those 3 questions and you give yourself some space, you can start to see what's important to you. And I think the key is kind of what we were talking about earlier, Mary, is that there's fear and anxiety around, what if I put it out there?
Yeah.
When you're writing the answers to those questions, you don't have to share that with anyone until you're ready. Now, don't get stuck by not moving, because I will tell you, I had the idea to start Bold Women's Society 3.5 years before I did. It took turning 40, selling my house, moving into a high-rise, floor-to-ceiling glass, my husband owning a construction company, still being essential, quote unquote, and me sitting by myself for me to say, I guess it's time to do this.
Yeah.
So don't allow yourself to stay stuck. But once you get that list, then you've got to start to say, okay, how can I take action? What's one step? So for example, if you say, I want to be confident, then I want you to take an action step to help you become more confident.
Yeah.
If you want to have, 3 employees on your team, or 30 employees, or 300, what's one step that you can take? And what I know about the law of attraction partnered with the law of action is that when you believe you can have something and you take a step, the next step will appear, the resources will appear, the right people will appear. It's when we do nothing that, again, no one's coming to save you.
Right. And that's what I think also there's power in telling it to one person, whether it's a coach or a colleague or somebody who's kind of a running partner alongside you. Because the power of saying it out loud with your outside voice means that it all of a sudden has energy. It's like, oh,
yes,
you want to be a published author. Great. Hey, I know a person who just wrote a book. Do you want to talk to her? I bet she has some ideas to tell you, like whatever it is. And I think that's, again, that goes back to your point earlier. Like, it's very, very, very hard to do things in isolation. It's so much easier to do it in community, or at least share the hive mind to get the connections you need or access to the tools or resources that point you in the right direction. Again, doing it in your way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Speak to us about the Bold Women's Society. Tell me more about what that is.
Yeah. So again, when I walked away from my fundraising career, I had literally gotten to the pinnacle of everything I wanted. I said I wanted to be there at 35. I was there at 34. I woke up at 35 and thought, this is not it. And I felt so damn alone. Yeah. I didn't feel like there was anyone else that I could turn to say, do you know I cry in my office every single day? Do you know I have no idea what I'm doing in terms of the next thing? Like, I was a great fundraiser. I knew how to do my job, but I knew it wasn't the right thing. And so Bold Women's Society was built to be a community for ambitious women who want to rebel, who want more, who maybe don't know how to get more. They don't know what steps to take. They might be having challenges with their confidence, their clarity. And so we like to say that we're the intersection of personal and professional development. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the personal development world, and it's great. And we unequivocally say that we are for the working professional woman. That's who we serve, right? The mom groups, we love you. Unless you're a working mom, we're probably not your jam, just because that's not who we serve.
Yeah.
And there's professional development going on, but there's a lot of industry specific, women, employee resource groups, all the things.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people talking about both, right? So like, how do we have mindset and get promoted?
Yeah.
How do we have clarity on what we want and go start our own business, right? Like, no one is really talking about both. And so we said we have to put a face to that, and we need to bring a community to that. And specifically, as you mentioned, for those of us who grew up in the States in the 70s and 80s and watching moms break glass ceilings, the glass ceilings weren't necessarily our issues. It was but you have to do it this way that I think is our generational issue. And so we're just saying, no, we don't. And so we have a community of women. We have coaching programs, one-on-one coaching. And then we have a free Facebook group where we just pour into women, and we want them to know, like, if you're feeling by yourself, you don't have to. You don't have to be by yourself. We link arms with us.
Yeah. And, if you're curious about the work that Caytie does out in the world, the website is boldwomensociety.com. Again, all the links are over in the show notes at the simplifierspodcast.com. They have events, they have online coaching, all the things. And, again, if this is something that piques your interest, I certainly encourage you to go over there, check it out, see if it's right for you. For all of us, no matter who you get coaching from or who you tap into as a community, our primary goal is just to make sure you're not alone and remember that you're never alone. There is always access to women and men who are just like you out in the world, who are willing and able to open their arms and invite you in. So again, I think boldness comes from, for me, just being willing to take the next step. Like not having the full roadmap all mapped out and perfectly planned in a social media publishing calendar or whatever, it's like just being willing to take the very next step, right?
Absolutely, Mary. Absolutely. And I think if our social media calendars have taught us anything, if anyone is producing reels right now, that you can put one out and it'll have 12 views, and then you can put one out and it has 10,000. So no matter how your plan is created, and I'm very much, plan the work the plan, but life is just not black and white. If we've learned anything in the last 19 months, it's just not. There's so many shades of gray and pink and green and blue, and we've got to learn to play in all of it and be totally okay with that.
Yeah, and absolutely. And you guys are doing something slightly different with your group, which I think is really intriguing, where if you want to get text messages that really boost your confidence and gives you real solid practical tips on, how to have high-performing habits, tips, techniques, and also ways to really bolster your career, you can actually text the word hello to 214-949-4715. Again, if you are in the States. And I love that, just having a texting community as well to serve people.
Yeah, it's such a fun way we pop it out every morning. I love watching the responses because so many times people are like, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. Or, oh my gosh, that really set me up for my week. So absolutely that funny enough, Mary, as you said, when you speak something into action, I thought of an idea of, couldn't I send a confidence tip to everyone like 5 years ago? I thought that would be so cool. And sometimes these things take a while, but God, we're loving doing it now for sure.
And it recalibrates the compass back to center, because we do float off into the ethers of overwhelm and to-do lists and all that. But it's just like yoga. You're just bringing yourself back to center, remembering what your compass is and having that true North Star.
Yeah.
So Caytie, as we wrap up here, there's a few questions I'd like to ask you that we ask everybody that's been on the podcast. So here goes. First and foremost, tell us what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system.
Absolutely. So one of the books that I'm reading that I actually picked up in an airport, I was coming home from a golf trip with my girlfriends. Like, how crazy is that? That was something I manifested.
Yes.
And it is a book by Brooke Baldwin from CNN called Huddle. I'm about halfway through it, and it is stories of how women huddle, how women create community and what it means. And so when you were talking earlier, Mary, about this idea that we're in community, right? That's what makes the difference for women. And it's career focused. It has some political focus on it because she interviewed some politicians as well. But it's a great reminder anytime I'm thinking, okay, this is why we're building community. This is why I need to be in community, not just build for others, but be in for myself. It's a great reminder, and so many amazing stories that I had never heard. So I love that one.
Oh, it's a great book. Really good recommendation. We'll stick that link in the show notes over at thesimplifierspodcast.com if you guys want to check that book out as well. So tell me, who is one person in your network, somebody that you know personally, you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, one day we might have them on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was thinking what you said earlier about how I can use my voice to amplify others.
Yeah.
And I thought of a former colleague of mine, Akila Wallace is her name. She's originally from Ohio and now is in Texas. We used to work together when I was in fundraising back at a women's foundation. And I have watched her career as she has gone from an executive assistant to she was just hired as a VP of development. But she has done so much work in racial justice and equity, was the executive director of a racial justice organization. And I think that she's using her megaphone as best she can. But I think that what she has to say needs to be amplified. Mm-hmm. It needs if I can help hold a megaphone up for her to be able to tell, and she's taught me so much that I just didn't even realize when we talk about racial injustices. So I would definitely, first of all, I'm just in awe of her. She knew where she was going when it came to her career, what she was going to get after. And I think a lot of people probably doubted her because they thought, oh yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And she's done it. And she's doing it, and as a single mom of two boys, and making really amazing impact in Texas for sure, and if not the world.
I love it. Well, we will hook Akila up in our show notes. So you guys are curious about the work she's doing out in the world, you can find her there as well. You know what? I mean, I think that's sometimes is nice. Again, this is how we get a data point and point our compass back to centers. We hear inspiring stories of women who are, like us. They're like, oh, okay, actually, this is possible. It's not putting somebody on a pedestal. It's not imagining that we're a size 0 and have an 8-figure lifestyle, whatever that is, nonsense. But really, truly seeing real women out in the world doing their thing in their pocket of the world and making positive impact. I think that's what we all crave, and that's what we want. Yeah. We want real people, real advice, so that we can make real decisions on our side of how we're going to calibrate and take action, right?
Absolutely. In a world full of airbrushedness, be authentic.
100%. Yeah. Well, so my final question for you is this today. And again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. It's been a great conversation. Caytie, someone somewhere is listening to you and I right now, and she is thinking about the year ahead. She's thinking about how it's going to be a little bit different, how she's going to do it all. But then she's also equally thinking, the holidays. If I add one more thing to my life, I am going to explode. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's okay to say no. Mm. When I realized that I didn't have to be perfect around the holidays, it gave me so much freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your kids aren't going to remember the perfect place setting, the perfect turkey, the perfect, present. They were probably never going to remember the present next year, right? But they will remember how you showed up, how you played games, how you smiled, how you laughed, how you, went out and played in the snow if it's snowing where you are, or rode the bike, or, back to basics. And don't be perfect. Perfect doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Say no when you need to. Say no to your mother-in-law when you need to. I love you, Nancy Langford, if you're listening.
You've got permission.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, just let go. If we've learned anything, because I think for a lot of people, this is going to be the first year, like back to the grind of the holidays.
Yeah.
Embrace the imperfection.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
So great. Thank you so much, Caytie. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate you. I appreciate you spreading this word of simplifying things and giving people tangible tools, the how to do it. So thank you.
Yes. Yes. Let's do it.